The night air over King's Landing tasted of dust and memory, a brittle tang that clung to Jaime Lannister's tongue as he stood on the parapet outside the Queen's chambers. The vast sprawl of the city below seemed both familiar and strange, a mosaic of rooftops and winding lanes where lanterns flickered like watchfires from a distant war. Though summer lingered, the wind carried a hint of autumn's chill, and he felt it beneath the golden plates of his armor under the shadow of a half-moon that resembled a broken coin. Behind him, in the antechamber, Cersei's voice rose and fell in clipped commands, sharp, imperious, edged with a kind of desperation she would never name. Steel-shod boots crossed marble, vellum crackled, a goblet toppled and rolled until it struck a tapestry stand. Jaime listened without turning, measuring each sound as though the cadence of her anger could chart the fault lines between them. He had once known the map of her moods better than any battlefield. But wars changed, and so did lovers. Even twins. The Iron Fleet was late. Raven spoke of storms off Cape Wrath, yet Jaime felt another tempest gathering, a pair of black wings beating over the narrow sea. Born by a woman with silver hair and 3 living dragons. Small folk whispered new prayers to Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains. In the taverns of Fleabottom, sellswords from Lice laid wagers on whose banners would fly over the Red Keep come winter. And in the high halls, courtiers paced like staghounds, sleek and nervous, sensing a fresh scent on the wind. Cersei would never yield. That was a truth as immovable as the mountains of the Vale. She would spend wildfire and oathbreakers alike to preserve her crown of serrated gold. But wildfire could not burn every doubt. It could not cauterize the wound Jaime carried in silence. The sight of smoke drifting over the Sept of Baelor, the echo of bells, the taste of ash that would forever taint his kisses. Footsteps approached. Ser Yonator Derry pushed open the doors, bowing low. "Your Grace requests you." Jaime lingered, ignoring the cold iron weight of duty. Below, on the city's outer wall, sentries bore torches that painted long, tremulous shadow. He watched them pivot, a perfect dance of routine and dread. At last he pivoted, tugging his gilded cloak into place. Very well. Inside, Cersei stood at the table strewn with maps of the Crownlands, a goblet of arbor red clutched in white, knuckled fingers. Golden hair spilled over her shoulders like a banner of war, yet her eyes, so like his own, glittered with sleepless fury. "They are cowards," she said, stabbing the parchment where a charcoal dragon's head denoted Dragonstone. "Hiding on that barren island, mewling about broken chains while they plot to shackle us. When Euron returns, we will crush them. But if the sea rots his sails, we must send a message now." Euron. Her gaze drifted to a scroll ribboned with black wax. News from Highgarden. The Queen of Thorns had bled her coffers dry to hire sellswords sworn to Daenerys Targaryen. Another scroll bore a red wine seal. Still another, the Afire son of Dorne. Alliances shifting like sand. Jaime set his gauntlets on the edge of the table, leaning forward until the candlelight gilded the stump where his right hand once flexed. "If we burn the countryside to cinder, the realm feeds itself to dragons. Fear can rule for a season, but hunger kills kings and queens more efficiently than swords. Leon, no shudi, Yumda Tabit." Cersei's lips curved in a smile that did not touch her eyes. "You speak as though their bellies matter. All that matters is walls and steel, and the will to use them." "And wildfire," he reminded her. A hush folded over them, the dark hush of memory. It was a blade between their ribs. Robert's city in flames. The Mad King's laughter. The moment Jaime's sword slid through flesh and severed destiny. He felt the echo now, the hot spray on his face, the hollow thud of a tyrant collapsing against marble. One heartbeat had branded him Kingslayer forever. Yet, for all that infamy, he had saved 500,000. Who would save them now? from a queen too proud to see farther than the Red Keep's granite walls. He reached for the goblet she had abandoned, drank, tasted notes of plum and oak, and a bitterness deeper than grapes. He wondered if love could ferment into poison. "Listen," she said. "When you ride north to command our vanguard, you will take 4,000 spears, 300 knights. In the field you are still my best weapon. Let them see the lion. Let them remember the name. Lannister is not finished. Them know when." Jimmy's pulse slowed, thick as clotted honey. "North. The Blackwater Rush," she clarified. "If the Dragon Queen seeks to move on King's Landing, she must cross that river or march past Harrenhal. You will bleed her first thrust." He thought of dragons wheeling against twilight, scales incandescent, annihilating 50 horse in a heartbeat. Spears would melt like candles. "Dragons do not bleed easily," he said. Cersei advanced, fingertips grazing the ridges of his pauldron. "Then slay the woman who commands them. A single sword through her heart, and those beasts will fly directionless. Some say dragons are bound to blood magic. Others claim they are smarter than men. I do not care. Kill her, and her armies dissolve. Noon. Elm. Gay. Shoni." Silence thickened. Jaime felt it coil around his throat. "And if I fail? Do not." The single word cracked like a whip. That night sleep evaded him. He walked the dark corridors of Maegor's Holdfast, flame tongues in iron sconces, casting distorted reflections upon gilded armor. A silent sister in marble watched him pass, face serene, palms uplifted as though inviting confession. He found none to offer. He drifted past the small sept where Cersei once knelt for penance, down spiral stairs to the armory where blades waited in rows like judgment. Shadows of swords shimmered on stone. Gods, how many swords had he known? Oathkeeper's Valyrian steel whispered beneath red lacquer. It seemed to breathe as he unlatched the clasp and drew half an inch. A darkness lived in that metal, the memory of ice reforged in fire. Outside, bells tolled for some distant vigil. Perhaps a baker's wife had died in childbirth. Perhaps a graybeard banker had choked on gilded almonds. Or perhaps the city rang its grief for a future already lost. By dawn, he saddled Honor and rode for the Mudgate, flanked by 4 household guards who did not speak. The sunrise stained the sky pink and bruised violet. Gulls wheeled over the Blackwater, screaming as though they sensed war brewing beneath their wings. The city smelled of fish brine, horse dung, and the faint acrid hint of old fires still smoldering. Crowds parted at sight of the lion, though fewer knelt than once had. In their eyes simmered caution, doubt, a curiosity sharper than respect. At Wharf Market, a puppet show depicted a silver dragon devouring a golden lion while a bird-headed dwarf cackled. The children laughed and tossed coppers. Mothers gathered them quickly, eyes flicking toward Jaime before turning away. The puppeteer bowed with exaggerated flourish. Jaime tossed him a stag, not knowing why. Perhaps buying silence, perhaps buying honesty. He crossed the river on a stone ferry causeway built ages ago, then spurred Honor into a canter along the gold road. Each hoofbeat thudded in his skull like a relentless truth. Kill the breaker of chains. Kill the only fire left in the world strong enough to temper his sister's madness. By noon, they reached a crossroads inn, whose sign showed a peach split by a sword. The smell of stewing boar draped the yard. He dismounted. Inside the common room, merchants and hedge knights crowded trestle tables, murmuring over maps. On one bench, a cobbler's guild courier recited fresh rumors. Tyrell ships seen near Storm's End. Dothraki outriders glimpsed on the King's Road. Unsullied drilling on the shores of Blackwater Bay. Every report ended with the same refrain. The Dragon Queen comes. Jaime accepted a clay cup of watered wine, listening. The courier described gray-brown foreigners in burnished helms who trained with short spears, their formation unbroken, even when pelted with stones by Stormlander lads. He described a great black dragon circling above as though counting each unsullied thrust. "How many dragons now?" a sellsword asked. "3, the courier said, "though some say one is as large as Balerion of old." Ash fell. JAIME tasted iron under his tongue. Balerion had forged the 7 kingdoms in Dragonflame, a beast so immense his wingspan blocked the sun. If even an echo of that power lived again, walls would crumble like crusts of bread. The inn door banged open. A knight in battered mail strode in, hair the color of pale straw, eyes earnest. JAIME marked a sigil, a purple field half white, half purple, no device. A hedge knight, then. The newcomer ordered ale, then caught JAIME's gaze and inclined his head. "Sire," he said, "word is Dragonstone calls for champions. Now there's a queen worth fighting for." JAIME raised an eyebrow. "You've seen her?" "Not yet, but they say she walks among the tents, speaks to the lowliest footmen, that she takes no pleasure in cruelty." The man shrugged. "Better than a queen who serves wine to sparrows one day and burns them the next." Murmurs rippled. The innkeep glanced toward the window nervously. JAIME finished the wine and set down the cup. "Queens are made of the same clay as any of us. They bleed, and their hearts can harden. But some hearts have not yet turned to stone," the hedge knight countered. "We hear Sir Barristan Selmy rides with her. If a legend such as he bends the knee, perhaps it is time honest swords choose their side." "Nas, I've worn too many sides," JAIME muttered. Outside, crows cawed on a gibbet where 2 hanged men swayed. Rebels, perhaps. Deserters, perhaps innocents. A faded placard read traitor. He wondered what name would hang around his own neck before this ended. That evening, camped beneath a copse of alder, JAIME watched dusk bleed over the fields. His guards kindled a small fire, and he gnawed at hard bread while the wood crackled. Above, stars prickled into view, cold candles in an indifferent vault. He unrolled Tyrion's last letter from a leather pouch, its corners greasy stained from repeated handling. "Brother," it began, "if you read this, I wager you have seen enough folly to fill 3 epic poems, and Cersei has tightened her noose around your neck, as surely as she chokes the realm. Dragonstone welcomes anyone who seeks more than ashes. We will need men of courage, and you have no shortage. Think on this. All our lives we called ourselves lions, but perhaps you deserve at last to be simply a man." Tyrion's scrawl trailed off into a sketch of a drinking cup. JAIME folded the letter slowly. He had not spoken to his brother since the cell door farewell before the Battle of the Black Water. Tyrion had murdered their father, and yet some part of JAIME felt he too wore that blood upon his hands. A tangle of grief and relief and remorse bound them tighter than any chain. He closed his eyes, imagining Dragonstone's basalt cliffs buffeted by spray. Then a woman standing upon the wind-lashed parapet, hair silver as dawn, dragons coiling behind her like living tempests. He imagined not the death blows Cersei demanded, but words, difficult words, shaping the foundation of some fragile peace. Could he trade one queen's bed for another's? The question tasted of treachery, yet beneath it lay something older than vows. The yearning of a boy who once dreamed of honor and found only compromise. Perhaps Daenerys Targaryen was another illusion. Perhaps she would reveal herself a tyrant no less cruel. But the story spoke of chains broken, of freed children. Even a lie containing hope might be worth hearing. He stared at his golden hand, glimmering in the firelight. With flesh, he had sworn a king's oath and betrayed it. With metal, he had sworn nothing, but carried the weight of every broken promise. What then was left to him? Only choice. At dawn he woke the guard captain. "We ride east," he said. "East? The Queen commands." "I command," Jaime cut in. "You will escort me as far as Rosby. From there you return to King's Landing and say I pursue a reconnaissance along the Blackwater. No banners, no trumpets. Understand?" The captain hesitated. Loyalty warred with survival in his eyes. "As you say, my lord." They rode hard across dew-silvered meadows, the sun rising behind them like a fiery oath. At midday, they skirted Rosby's moss-covered ramparts. Jaime dismissed the escort, handing each man a sealed writ absolving them of desertion. "Ride fast," he advised. "Lie boldly. Only Sir Desmond, a quiet Riverlander sworn to him since the Whispering Wood, chose to remain." Together they veered onto the Stormlands Road, toward the coast where salt winds sharpened thought. Every league carried him farther from Cersei's orbit, as though the invisible tether between them frayed fiber by fiber. Yet with each mile his chest grew lighter, not heavier. He felt it when they forded a brook glassy with sky. He felt it when gulls wheeled overhead screaming of tides and freedom. The guilt he expected did not arrive. In its place came an unsettling calm. "I am not running," he told himself. "I am riding toward a different war." 3 days passed. They slept in watchtowers abandoned after the Greyjoy rebellion, in barns where mice scurried like restless conscripts, beneath hedgerows where dew painted their cloaks silver before dawn. They passed refugees drifting west, small folk fleeing rumored dragons, their worldly goods piled on creaking carts. Jaime offered spare coins and what food he could, earning baffled thanks. At dusk of the 4th day, they entered a ruined village on the fringes of Blackwater Bay. Stone walls blackened by fire leaned like drunkards. Charnel weeds sprouted from cracks. The Septi's bell lay half buried in rubble, fractured into 3 jagged pieces. A stray dog slunk through debris, ribs outlined beneath matted fur. War had visited here, though whose banners had flown, none could say. By the well stood a girl of perhaps 10, dress patched, feet bare. She watched them with eyes too old for her face. "Thirsty?" Jaime asked, dismounting. She nodded, wary. He drew the bucket, filled a leather water skin, and offered it. She drank, water spilling down her chin, then wiped her mouth. "Soldiers came," she murmured. "Tied my da to the tree. Took my ma. Said dragons coming. Need girls to feed the fires." "None. Jaime felt his gut twist. "Whose soldiers?" She shrugged. "They wore no colors, said they served the queen in the city. Cersei's reach then, or one of a dozen petty lords hoping to curry her favor." He knelt before the child. "Listen to me. Dragons burn only what threatens them. Find the coast road and follow it east. You will meet people wearing black and red. Dragon banners. Tell them what was done to you. They will not harm a child. Say, Sir Jaime Lannister sends you." Her eyes widened. "The Kingslayer." "The same." He pressed a silver stag into her palm. "For food." She tucked it into a ragged pocket and nodded once, as solemn as a maester. That night, Jaime dreamed of the field at the Trident where Rhaegar Targaryen fell, rubies scattering like the blood of promises. He dreamed of water turning to flame, of a woman's scream that was somehow both Cersei's and Daenerys. When he woke, before dawn, his cheeks were wet. Dragonstone revealed itself at last through torn veils of mist, its towers like talons raking a pewter sky. The sea hammered basalt cliffs with ancient fury. Gulls wheeled, white scribbles against brooding clouds. Fires winked along the beach encampment. Unsullied tents in precise rows, Dothraki herds penned beyond. Black sails emblazoned with 3-headed dragons moored offshore. The smell of salt, horse, and cook fires mingled in bracing blend. At the sentry line, a column of unsullied leveled spears. Jaime raised his good hand, palm out, and dismounted, helm cradled beneath one arm. Sir Desmond, followed suit. They advanced slowly until a captain stepped forward, helm scarlet-plumed, bronze mask impassive. "I am Sir Jaime Lannister of Casterly Rock," Jaime announced, voice carrying across the hush of waves. "I come to treat with Queen Daenerys Stormborn, breaker of chains, mother of dragons." Captain's gaze flicked to the lion embossed on Jaime's breastplate, then to the stump of his right wrist, glinting beneath the golden prosthesis. "You bring her head?" the Unsullied asked in clipped common. "I bring myself." A pause stretched. Then the captain gestured. Two ranks parted, and Jaime strode between them. He heard whispers: "Kingslayer, Lannister, lion made of gold," but no spear wavered. Discipline honed in Astapor held firm. They led him past ranks of sullen gray soldiers to a command tent where black silk rippled. Beyond, a great pit had been dug, coals glowing. Chains lay coiled like dead serpents. Jaime felt heat on his face, but the fire smelled of pine, not flesh. Inside the tent, Tyrion waited. The sight of the dwarf struck him like a crossbow to the chest. Tyrion stood at a carved table cluttered with parchments, wearing black doublet stitched with silver lions, the only scrap of Lannister heraldry he still claimed. His eyes glimmered with wine and worry. "Brother," he said softly. Jaime removed his gauntlet, grasped Tyrion's forearm. They held that grip longer than politeness demanded, until whatever anger lingered ebbed. Tyrion released a breath. "So you came. Part of me doubted even your stubborn honor could pry you from Cersei's talons." "I have not scrubbed the blood from my hands," Jaime replied. "But they are my hands, not hers. And the realm needs more than wildfire." She. Tyrion gestured at a stool. "Sit. The queen will receive you shortly. She is cautious, as she should be." Wine was poured, arbor red, though not the vintage Cersei favored. Jaime tasted it, found notes of blackberry, cedar, a hint of smoke. He wondered if monks somewhere prayed over each barrel, asking forgiveness for the havoc men would plot under its influence. Tyrion studied him. "Does she know you are here?" "No." "Ah. And if she learns, she will. Raven or rumor." "Then what?" Tyrion asked. Jaime rubbed his temples, feeling the ghost of a headache. "Let her name me traitor. She would not be wrong. But there are worse crimes than treason." Before Tyrion could answer, a figure swept through the tent flap. Grey Worm, captain of the Unsullied, bowed fractionally. Behind him glided a woman in dove-grey silks, Missandei of Nath. Her eyes assessed Jaime, weighing life and death in a single heartbeat. "The queen will see Sir Jaime," she announced. "Alone." Tyrion gave his brother a look, equal parts encouragement and warning. Jaime rose, adjusting his cloak so the lion's tail lay flat. Grey Worm guided him toward a stair cut into volcanic rock, torchlit and narrow. Heat climbed those steps like breath from the mountain's throat. They emerged into the ancient throne room of Dragonstone, where dragon-shaped pillars coiled upward and windows gaped like fanged maws upon the sea. Braziers blazed, and in their glow stood Daenerys Targaryen. She wore black and red, a gown of dragon scale pattern that shimmered when she moved, the collar rising like wings around her throat. Silver gold hair fell in twin braids that met at the crown, the rest cascading down her back. Her eyes, lit by firelight, were the color of amethyst at dusk. At her side perched the dwarf dragon, regal, green bronze, eyes glowing ember bright. The beast hissed softly, scenting lion. Jaime approached until unsullied halberds barred further progress. He knelt, stiff in armor. His golden hand struck stone with a metallic echo. "Rise, Sir Jaime," she said, voice soft but carrying. "You come of your own will. I do, your grace." "Why?" He exhaled, meeting her gaze. The depth there shocked him. fury cooled into purpose, sorrow tempered into iron. Because the realm deserves more than ashes. Because your enemy is my enemy, though once she was everything to me. Because I have spent a life killing for kings and queens who cared little for the small folk they ruled, and I would see if another path exists before the world burns again. Her silence stretched, punctuated by surf crashing against the cliffs. Rhaegal's head tilted, nostrils flaring. Jaime smelled brimstone. You were sworn to defend your queen in King's Landing, Daenerys said at last. Yet you left her. Some would call that betrayal. None. Delicious Sulia. I have been called worse. Kingslayer, she acknowledged. They say you saved this city once by murdering your king. Tell me, Sir Jaime Lannister, who do you serve now? He drew Oathkeeper a hand's breadth, letting Valyrian steel catch the firelight. This blade was forged from ice, the sword of House Stark, broken and reforged at orders of House Lannister. It was meant as a gift, payment for loyalty bought with blood. I took it to honor a vow to a maiden who believed there was still good in me. He sheathed it. So I serve that vow, your grace. I serve the living, not the dead. Nanum. Daenerys descended 2 steps, skirts whispering. She studied the gold hand, ran her gaze along seam of breastplate dented from some forgotten joust. Will you raise your sword against your own house? I will raise it to end a war that should never have begun. She regarded him a moment longer, then lifted her chin. Very well, you will dine at my table tonight. We shall learn if the lion and the dragon can break bread without claws. Only when she turned away did breath escape his lungs. He felt lightheaded, as though he had walked a rope above a chasm and survived. As he followed Missandei back toward the stair, a roar crackled outside, deep, thunderous. Through the open maw of a window, he glimpsed Drogon gliding across the gray sky, wings churning clouds, great shadow swallowing dawn. Jaime halted, awe rooting him. Once he had watched a dragon's skull gather dust in the bowels of the Red Keep, its eye holes dark and vacant as regret. Now he beheld a living mountain of scale and sinew, power incarnate, and he realized that, for all Cersei's schemes, she had no weapon to match this. In that moment, something within him shifted. A tectonic plate long jammed by fear and habit, now grinding into new alignment. I will not let the world burn again. The vow formed without fanfare, a simple, solid stone. That night, torches blazed in the feasting hall, their smoke winding toward ribs of black stone overhead. The aroma of lemon herb sea bass, saffron rice, and garlic prawns perfumed the air. Musicians plucked lutes softly, conversation murmured like tide wash. Unsullied stood sentinel, still as carvings. Jaime sat opposite Daenerys, at a narrow table, flanked by Tyrion and Missandei. Grey Worm loomed behind his queen's chair. To Jaime's right, a burly young commander of the Dothraki, Jogo, he recalled, tore into roast goat with savage delight. They spoke of logistics, grain stores, shipyards, numbers of spears and cavalry. Jaime answered each query plainly, unadorned by flattery. He described the Blackwater defenses, the scorpions Cersei mounted on the walls, the wildfire reserves rumored beneath the streets. He outlined Euron Greyjoy's likely routes, the weaknesses of the Golden Company, the folly of assaulting the city before winter. Daenerys listened, head inclined, fingertips steepled. Now and then her eyes found Jaime's, and something like cautious respect flickered there. When the plates were cleared, wine refilled, Tyrion broached the true matter. My queen must know, he said. What price you ask for this counsel? No man crosses blood for nothing. Jaime wiped his lips on cloth. I ask no lands, no titles, only that when King's Landing falls, mercy be shown. The small folk did not choose their queen, nor did the young pages who stoke her hearth, nor the septors who pray for souls. Daenerys' gaze hardened. Cersei butchered my father's loyalists, plotted my death when I was but a girl, unleashed wildfire on her own people. Why should her city be spared? Because justice is not vengeance, he replied, and a ruler who cannot distinguish them becomes what she despises. Silence. Tyrion's brows arched, impressed. Missandei studied the table. Jogo belched quietly. Finally, Daenerys spoke, voiced low. You speak as though you know the difference. I once slit a king's throat to save a city. I was hailed villain for it. He met her eyes. I would bear that name again if it spares innocence. She leaned back, exhaling. Very well. If your counsel proves true, if your blade aids our cause, I will remember your words when the Iron Throne is within reach. Tyrion lifted his goblet in salute. To unlikely alliances, he said. Jaime drank, tasting hope for the first time in years. Days turned to weeks upon Dragonstone. Jaime drilled beside unsullied phalanxes, advising on Westerosi cavalry tactics. He sparred with Dothraki blood riders who laughed when he fell, and laughed harder when he rose. He dined with Missandei, learning Nati proverbs about butterflies and storms. He walked ramparts with Tyrion, debating the nature of power, of atonement. And sometimes, at purple dusk, Daenerys joined him on the windswept parapet overlooking the roiling sea. They spoke not of war, but of histories, hers of exile and liberation, his of oaths and guilt. She listened when he recounted the moment he pushed a screaming boy from a Winterfell tower, how that single act unraveled everything. She did not absolve him, but neither did she condemn. Instead, she asked what he had learned from the breaking. Fall enough times, he said, and you learn the ground intimately. She smiled, soft as shoreline foam. Perhaps we will build something upon that ground yet. Rhaegal would land nearby, tail whipping, eyes alert. Jaime did not flinch anymore. He felt the heat of the dragon's breath as baptism, cauterizing old fears. One starlit night, they lingered after the others departed. The torchlight painted Daenerys' face in warm gold, and the wind tangled a strand of silver hair across her brow. She brushed it aside, hands trembling almost imperceptibly. Sir Jaime, she began, then hesitated. I have condemned countless men for crimes committed in their queen's name. When this war ends, how shall history judge you? He studied the dark horizon where waves shattered against rock. History is written by victors, he said. Let it write what it will. I would rather concern myself with the living pages, the beating hearts who walk away from ruin. He turned to her. If you would forge a new realm, forge it upon living hearts, not skull-piled thrones. She stepped closer. The air between them sparkled with salt spray. And if I asked you to aid me in that forging, not as sword alone, but as partner? The world narrowed to her eyes, violet, luminous. He heard the distant roar of dragons, the crash of surf, the ragged drum of his own pulse. I broke my vows once for a promise I believed greater, he whispered. Perhaps it is time to keep a vow I never thought to make. Her lips parted, not in command, but invitation. And somewhere far off, bells tolled from a city that did not yet know its fate, nor the shape of love that would decide it. Beyond Dragonstone's walls, armies assembled. Ravens beat black arteries across the sky. The Iron Throne trembled upon its barbed days, waiting to see whether a lion's roar or a dragon's flame would echo in its halls. Yet for one fragile moment, amid salt and starlight, two souls stood on the precipice of a choice that might remake kingdoms, not through wildfire, but through a marriage of fire and gold. Crescent moon dipped low over Blackwater Bay, leaving the waves awash in argent ghosts. On Dragonstone's highest rampart, Jaime stood with the wind tugging his cloak, the chill gnawing through leather and mail to the scar where his sword arm once joined flesh. Far below, the tide rushed in and out of basalt crags like the breath of some ancient leviathan. He had watched the sea his whole life, yet never had he felt it so patient, so inevitable, as though it waited for men to make their choices, then quietly erased them. Behind him, the rustle of silk announced Daenerys. She approached without guards, her footfalls light on dragon-carved stone. Moonlight silvered her hair, but her eyes held their own secret radiance. They settled beside each other, silent at first. Words were fragile glass tonight, and both sensed the weight of their unspoken promise. "I have ordered the fleet to weigh anchor at dawn," she said at last. "Half the Unsullied will sail for Crackclaw Point, march south along the King's Road under cover of forest. The Dothraki will ride from Rosby before first light. Drogon and Rhaegal and I will fly with them. You leave Dragonstone nearly empty," JAIME observed. "Tyrion, Varys, and a token guard remain. The island is fortress enough against any sudden strike from Euron, and the storms of autumn will hamper his ships. I need every talon ready for King's Landing." She faced him fully. "And you?" Jaime's breath clouded between them. "I ride ahead tonight, alone. If I'm to open the gates, I must reach the city before Cersei feels the ground shift beneath her." "Nanu, Tini, Tony." Her brow furrowed. "She will suspect the moment you cross the Riverlands. Ravens can outrun dragons." "Ravens can, yes," he conceded. "But I know paths seldom traveled. Smugglers' lanes through the Kingswood, postern doors beneath the Mudgate. I can be inside the walls before the first warning reaches her solar." "And once there?" He hesitated, tasting the memory of wildfire smoke. "I will speak with my brother's men still hidden in the city. The gold cloaks who swore to Bronn, the fishmongers Tyrion paid in good silver. Enough to swing the gate chains, or at least to dull the scorpion crews when your dragons strike. But more than that," he exhaled, "I will look Cersei in the eye and offer her mercy." "Mercy," Daenerys repeated as though sampling its flavor. "What mercy did she show the Sept of Baelor?" "None," he admitted. "Yet she is still the mother of my children, and though our love has rotted into poison, I will drain the cup rather than shatter it. Mercy does not mean escape. It means choice. Step aside, bend the knee, or face the dragons with any sword still loyal." He met Daenerys' gaze. "Let this war end with surrender, not slaughter." "I beg that of you." She studied him in the hush between wave crashes. "If she surrenders, she will live," she said finally. "Yet she will answer for her crimes. The realm deserves that." He bowed his head. "She will. I will stand witness." Bells screamed overhead, wheeled into the dark. Daenerys' hand brushed his golden prosthesis. The metal gleamed pale in lunar light. She turned his wrist until the carved lion's maw caught the sky. "This hand is forged, but the pulse beneath is real," she murmured. "Do not let it grow cold in that city of ghosts." He closed his flesh fingers around hers, feeling the contrast. Warm skin, cool brass. "When I return, I will come not as lion or traitor, but as man." "And husband?" Question came soft, uncertain. "If the realm permits," he said. "And if the Dragon Queen still wants the Kingslayer." She smiled, small and fierce. "The realm be damned. I will want the man named JAIME. Now no, Theo." He bent, pressed his mouth to her knuckles. Her hair smelled of salt and citrus, a scent he would carry through streets paved with treachery. When they parted, dawn's first hint ghosted the horizon, a pale bruise on velvet black. The Kingswood loomed thick and dripping, branches interlaced like fingers warding secrets. Jaime rode a rangy chestnut gelding stripped of barding. The beast's dark coat blended with the night. He left Sir Desmond behind at a Waystone Inn, with sealed instructions for Tyrion. Should Jaime be taken, the sequence of gatehouse guards loyal to gold rather than lions would still reach the hand. Then he spurred into the maze of oaks and beeches, where smugglers whispered of hidden passes. By lamplight he traced a deer track that twisted between roots and nettle beds. No moon guided him under the canopy, only the soft pad of hooves on leaf rot and the distant croak of nightjars. Gnats brushed his cheeks, a reminder that summer had not fully released its grip. Every league closer to the capital tightened the band around his ribs. Memories garrote. Near dawn he reached a disused hunter's shack, once shared with Rhaegar's kin on a youthful tourney chase. Ivy swallowed its beams now, but the stone well behind still yielded sweet water. Jaime drank, then splashed his face, watching droplets shimmer on the golden lion clasp. He stripped a crimson cloak from his shoulders, burying it beneath moss and soil. In its place, he donned a plain brown mantle stitched with a wool badge. 2 crossed hammers, the sigil of House Swift, distant kin, but unremarkable enough to pass through gates unnoticed. That he crested a rise, and King's Landing burst upon him. Ramparts already glittering in dawnlight, domes of the great sept long since collapsed, now ringed by cranes and scaffolds. Dust clouds rose from construction. Even within siege shadow, the city repaired its wounds, like flesh oblivious to the blade poised above it. The red keep's towers stabbed the horizon, banners of gold lion and red fields snapping smartly. No black sails on the river, no dragons in the sky. Jaime urged the gelding downslope, mind rehearsing lies. He chose the gate of the gods, busiest with market carts at morning. The portcullis stood raised, guards paced, yawning after night watch. None spared the solitary rider more than a glance, one weary night among many returning from patrol. Within the outer yard, hawkers already shouted berry prices, and a fishmonger dumped eels into a cart where cats yowled in ecstasy. Life, stubborn and resilient. Jaime dismounted at a livery stable, tipped the boy 2 pennies, and walked the sloping street toward his family's manse beneath Aegon's high hill. Gold cloaks saluted half-heartedly, their eyes more on dice than duty. He noted which wore sun-faded sashes, likely veterans, and which carried new-forged halberds, recruits pressed into service by a desperate queen, who promised back pay after victory. Desperation left cracks. He stored each crack like a stiletto in the belt of his mind. The Lannister townhouse loomed whitewashed, shutters closed despite the hour. 2 Lannister guards flanked the door, but neither were men he recalled from the Rock. One bore Grafton colors pinned beneath the lion brooch, mercenaries on loan from the Vale, perhaps. Jaime nodded. They opened without challenge. Inside the vestibule, a hush wrapped him, thick as dust on tapestries. Gold lions rampant on crimson, their eyes dull with age. "I must see her grace," he told the steward who materialized. "At once." The man swallowed, offered a stiff bow. "She holds audience in the Oval Gallery, my lord." "May I?" But Jaime was already striding the corridor, boots echoing off marble. He passed portraits of his ancestors. Lan the Clever winked from one, Titos scowled from another, and wondered which would claim him if legend kept ledger. The Oval Gallery's great doors stood ajar. Torchlight shimmered where high clear stories leaked morning glow. Cersei sat at a long curved table strewn with dispatches, her gown a cascade of black silk studded with rubies that caught firelight. Around her hovered Qyburn, Sir Gregor in silent helm, Lord Giles Rosby coughing delicately into a lace kerchief. 2 kettle-black brothers fidgeted near wine decanters. When Jaime stepped inside, conversation faltered. Qyburn's pale eyes glittered. Sir Gregor's helm tilted like a crow regarding carrion. Cersei alone betrayed no surprise, only a quick flare of nostrils, as if she had scented a familiar spice in an unfamiliar dish. "Brother," she said, voice smooth as Dornish red, "I wondered when you would slither back." He approached, bowing home the urge to embrace or throttle. I ride from the Blackwater lines. Reports of Dothraki raiders near Horn proved false. Only Stormlander deserters scavenging grain. Is that why you wear common wool? She flicked a fingertip across the hammers on his cloak. I traveled light. He met her eyes. I must speak with you alone. Her smile cut like glass. Whatever words you've rehearsed can be spoken before my council. Jaime surveyed the gathered. Qyburne's grin spidered wider. Gregor's gauntleted fist flexed. The air smelled of wet iron, fear, anger, perhaps blood spilled earlier. He bowed slightly. Very well. I bring news from the field. Dragonstone sails at dawn. Dothraki ride already. The breaker of chains comes with 3 dragons, and the forces of Dorne, Highgarden, and half the Stormlands at her back. And Cersei sipped wine, and she offers terms. A stir. Lord Giles wheezed loud enough to echo. Cersei set the goblet down. Terms, she repeated. Does she send a parchment, or merely a rumor blown on the wind? Neither. I have spoken with her. Qyburne's brows lifted. Cersei's face remained carved marble. You were to command our vanguard. I rode east, infiltrated her camp. Jaime kept his voice level. She offers surrender, knees bent, banners lowered. In exchange, she guarantees safety for the small folk, trial for the guilty, and the chance for nobility to retain lands under her rule. Generous, Cersei drawled. For a usurper, she is her father's heir sister. Many in the realm consider her the rightful queen. Many in the realm are fools. She rose, skirts whispering. Do you bend knee to silver dragons now? I bend knee to the realm, he said, and I will not watch it drown in wildfire again. She intends to burn the scorpions. Without those, the city is lost. Spare the city, surrender, or at least evacuate the innocents. For the first time, cracks marbled her composure. She stepped closer until he tasted arbor spice on her breath. You would have me crawl, hand my throne to the daughter of a madman. I have faced dragons before and lived. You faced one, he reminded softly, and only because Drogon chose not to finish us. Now there are 3, grown larger, armored against quarrels. Nadanut. Cersei's hand flashed. She struck him across the cheek. The blow stung less than memory. Countless slaps shared in passion or rage. Silence rippled outward. I knew you were weak, she hissed, but I hoped the lion I bedded still snarled inside. Instead, I find a mewling cub. He tasted blood. This cub offers you life. Life in chains. Life to rule Casterly Rock if you wish. Life to raise our son. He let the words hang. Her eyes flared. Our son. I know, he said. Qyburne's leech told me at the Blackwater encampment. Shock flickered across the spymaster's face. Clearly he had whispered to none but the queen. Fight, and you risk him as you risk every child behind these walls. A tremor betrayed her hand on the table. Sir Gregor shifted, mail clinking like death bells. Finally Cersei laughed. Brittle, bright. So Daenerys sent you as envoy. Did she warm your bed before giving you her scroll? No bed, he lied. Only terms. Then hear mine. She stepped back, composed once more. Return to the vanguard. Hold the Blackwater. When the dragon bitch crosses, you put an arrow through her heart. Fail, and our child dies screaming before you. Suddenly, Jaime flinched. You would not. She is my blood. Cersei's eyes gleamed feral. I will not yield her birthright to foreign whores and bastard dwarfs. Leave, fulfill your oath, or never return. He stood rooted. In the corner of his vision, Sir Gregor moved, gauntlet resting on sword hilt. Jaime bowed stiffly. Very well, he said, though the words cracked like ice. He turned, cloak swirling, and strode from the gallery before grief could unman him. In the hallway he quickened pace, mind racing. Cersei would never surrender. If he remained, she would bind him to her suicide pact. If he fled, she would brand him traitor. Yet he still had threads to pull. Gold cloaks sympathetic, secret passages, caches of wildfire. Wildfire. A sudden dread seized him. If Cersei realized defeat was inevitable, she would repeat the Mad King's final solution. Coburn would not hesitate to spark it. He had to move faster than dragons. The Spotted Prawn Tavern nestled in a crooked alley off Cobbler's Square, its sign eaten by rust until only a smudge of crimson shrimp remained. Inside, morning patrons drank onion stew broth to chase stale dreams. Jaime slid onto a bench beside a one-eyed Cersei named Chelko, once a city watch sergeant bought by Tyrion during Joffrey's reign. Chelko grinned tooth-gab. Thought you roosted in golden cages these days. I prefer simpler roosts. Jaime dropped a purse. Coins clinked. I need men. Men cost. More pores when dragons fly. He leaned close. Cersei means to burn the city if she loses. Wildfire caches under the Guildhall of the Alchemists. There are others. Chelko's grin died. How many men? Enough to seize the Guildhall, hold key tunnels, and open the Mudgate on signal. Tyrion will pay double what you've earned in life, and Daenerys will spare the city. The Cersei scratched his beard. And if the lioness wins after all, then coin buys you exile by fast ship before she counts heads. Chelko spat into a mug weighing wrist. At length, he nodded. You'll have 30 by dusk. More if the wind smells right. Nanis done away. Jaime clasped his shoulder, rose and slipped into the maze of streets. He visited a baker whose daughter once served in Myrcella's household. A peaman who owed Tyrion for a lost thumb, saved by Maester's stitch. A gang of dockside cutthroats whose leader carried affection for Brienne, after she beat him senseless and spared his life. Each pledged quiet aid, spurred by coin or conscience. By afternoon, he reached the ruins of the great Sept. Scaffolds encircled shattered pillars. Workmen chipped limestone as septons chanted lamentations. Among the rubble knelt Lancel's old squire, now brother Norbert, head bowed. Jaime knelt beside him, murmured a prayer to the stranger, and pressed a parchment into his calloused hand, mapped to the Visenya's hill cache. The silent brother's eyes widened, but he tucked the map into his robe and returned to prayer. Faith reborn would protect more souls than sermons. Evening deepened. Jaime ducked through flea-bottom alleys where smoky hearth fires scented the air. Children played knucklebones with crab shells. Whores advertised comfort for a copper. He passed unmolested, armor hidden beneath cloak, lion disguised beneath hammer badge. At the Pig's Eye brothel, he climbed rickety stairs to a garret where Bronn lounged on feather mattress with two Tyroshi twins. The sellsword poured wine without sitting up. Lannister, he drawled. Figured you were either dead or balls deep in a dragon queen. Perhaps later. Jaime outlined the plan. At midnight, Chelko's men would seize the Guildhall. At second, Bell Bronn's gold cloaks would replace gatehouse crews. At first light, Drogon would bank over Visenya's hill, the signal to raise portcullis, flood unsullied into Fishmonger's Square. Bronn tilted his goblet. Timing's fine, but what about your sister's green freak? Meaning Sir Gregor. I will handle him. Hope you kept the sword pointed end up trick. Jaime rose. Watch for the dragon, Bronn. Don't look at its shadow. Look at the city it spares. He tossed a ruby the size of a pigeon's egg onto the bed. For your trouble. Bronn's eyes widened. More where that came from. More. Jaime turned, cloak billowing, and descended into streets that hummed with unknowable destiny. Midnight. Shroom. Fog rolled from the river, muffling the cobbles. Jaime donned a hooded jerkin and crossed to the Guildhall of the Alchemists, an austere edifice whose green-tinged glass windows glowed faintly within. 2 robed pyromancers guarded iron doors, their sleeves embroidered with the ever-burning candle. Chelko's sellswords converged from alleys like wolves, blades bare. The pyromancers stiffened, lips forming incantations. But crossbow bolts struck first. One fell, the other shrieked before sword pommel silenced him. Jaime stepped over the bodies, guilt kneeling at each heartbeat. But a million lives weighed on one door. Inside, corridors reeked of mint masking acrid wildfire stench. Emerald light seeped from bottles stacked floor to ceiling. Each globe a sleeping demon. Qyburn had shifted much of the stash to below the Red Keep, but enough remained to flay the city's western quarters. Jaime ordered Chelko's men to load crates onto carts waiting outside. They wheeled death into the fog and tipped it, 1 jar at a time, into the black water where green plumes hissed and guttered beneath brackish tide. They worked swift and silent, and by cockcrow only 24 casks remained. Too many, yet fewer than yesterday. A bell told 2nd hour. Jaime felt it reverberate through marrow. Bronze part began. The mud gate garrison changed shift. If his old friend kept faith, Lannister red cloaks found themselves ousted by bristle-jawed newcomers claiming new orders from Lord Commander Dunn. By the time wine-breathed sergeants argued chain of command, padlocks on winch houses were replaced, and tendons of the gate lay in loyal hands. Jaime slunk along shadowed walls toward the Red Keep. He scaled the postern door at the base of Traitor's Walk, Irony noted, and entered tunnels known only to 4. Himself, Tyrion, Varys, and dead Rozek the Ratcatcher. Rozek perished of gut last year, so the count was 3. Torch in hand, Jaime followed dank passages until he emerged behind a tapestry of the doom of Valyria in the royal apartments. Cersei's chambers lay ahead, doors guarded by Lannister men he once drilled as squires. He stepped into the corridor boldly. "Sir Jaime," one gasped. "We thought you were with the Vanguard." "I returned by secret track." He kept stride. "Wake no servants. I must speak to her grace." The men exchanged glances but nodded, swinging open carved cedar doors. Jaime entered. Cersei stood before the hearth, hair unbraided, belly swelling beneath a nightgown of black velvet. Yellow-orange flame painted her cheeks flicker red. On a side table rested a goblet of wine. Against Maester advice, he recalled. "You should be at the gatehouse," she said. "I should," he agreed. Silence crackled. Shadows lengthened behind him. He sensed the guards ease the door shut, leaving them alone. Cersei's gaze slid to the sword at his hip. "So you came to kill me after all." There was weariness in her tone, a frayed edge he'd heard only once before, the night Tommen leapt from the window. "I came to save you." He stepped closer, offering hand. "Not golden, but flesh. Come with me now. We'll escape by river ferry." Tyrion arranged passage. "You, me, the child. I will not run." "Then bend the knee. Live." She laughed bitterly. "Kneel to a Targaryen cunt who parades dwarf advisors and eunuch generals. Never. Please. You would cower behind dragon skirts, Jaime." She paced, fingers roving the mantle. "But I will finish what Father began. Lannister rule, uncontested. Father never wanted ash. He wanted power. The means do not matter. Wildfire is but another sword. Jaime's guts iced. You moved the stores beneath the Red Keep." Cersei's eyes flicked, a dot of triumph. "Qyburn prepares the fuse even now. Should my gates fail, King's Landing will become my tomb. And hers. No. Daddy. No. Jaime advanced. I will not let you. You cannot stop. I can. He drew Oathkeeper half bare. Tell me where the fuse leads. Lower vaults, she said almost dreamily. A single torch, a single drop of flame. A dragon cannot devour what no longer exists. He lunged, seizing her shoulders. Cersei, our child. I would rather see him dead than bending knee to dragons. For an instant, he saw Aerys' mad grin transposed over her face, smoke behind her eyes. Something inside Jaime shattered like septels. His hand closed round her throat, not in passion, not in lust, but in desperation. Tears burned his lids. Don't, he whispered. Don't make me choose again. Her lips tightened, yet her fingers brushed his cheek. Tender, tragic. You already have, she breathed. Steel run. Duty. Behind him, Ser Gregor stepped from the shadows, greatsword raised. Jaime spun, parried, met crushing force with Valyrian edge. Sparks burst. The mountain loomed colossal, armor lacquered black, helm mottled where rot festered beneath. He swung, a butcher's cleave. Jaime ducked, slashed at knee joint. Steel met plate. The giant hissed, unseen flesh spurting dark ichor that steamed in torch glow. Cersei backed to hearth, eyes wide, fear or fascination he could not know. The mountain advanced, blows thunderous. Jaime retreated, feinted, used speed where power failed. Oathkeeper danced, golden hand deflected glancing strikes with clanging fury. A lucky cut severed a strap. Gregor's pauldron fell, exposing diseased purple flesh. Jaime drove point in. The giant bellowed, swatted him like insect. Jaime smashed into a pillar, ribs cracking. Pain flared. White. Gregor raised sword for killing stroke. Jaime rolled, grabbed a fallen torch, thrust flame into the ooze seeping from the mountain's wound. Rod caught fire. Gregor shrieked an inhuman wail, staggering. Jaime rose, chest heaving, and drove Oathkeeper through plate, through breastbone, into heart. The mountain toppled. The floor trembled with the Titan's death. Jaime leaned on the blade, coughing blood. Across the room, Cersei stared, tears spilling, whether sorrow for her champion or for lost invincibility, he could not tell. Tell me how to stop the fuse, he rasped. She sank to her knees, clutching belly. Too late, she whispered. Qyburn lights it at first bell, before dawn. Outside, a bell tolled. First bell. Grief crashed over him. He sheathed Oathkeeper, strode to her, knelt. Come, we can still flee. She shook her head, hair clinging to tears. Jaime felt his heart break anew, but forced arms beneath her, lifting despite protest. He carried her through doorways now empty. Guards fled after hearing the duel's horror. Down spiraling steps to the old rat-catcher's tunnel he bore her, every jolt drawing a gasp. At the vault entrance, Qyburn emerged holding a lantern, whose glass glowed sickly green. His smile froze. My lord, he began. Jaime's dagger thunked into his throat. The lantern dropped, flame sputtering. Jaime kicked it aside before it shattered. Within the vault, a cord of oily rope stretched along floor, disappearing into row on row of clay pots. The rope smoked already, fuse lit. Jaime seized Qyburn's fallen dagger, severed the fuse a foot from flame. Sparks fizzled. The ember died. Silence, save Cersei's sob. Jaime exhaled ragged. The air stank of pine resin and charred hemp, but no explosion came. He faced her. It ends, he said. Tears streaked soot on her cheeks. She tried to speak, voice breaking. Why did you? Because I love you. He pressed forehead to hers. And because I must let you go. Footsteps hammered the corridor. Gold cloaks. Bronn burst in, crossbow high, Shelko at his side. They stared at the scene. Qyburn's corpse, cut fuse, defeated mountain. Well, Bronn muttered, always miss the fun. Escort the queen to a secure room, Jaime ordered. Post 4 men, gentle hands. At dawn, she surrenders the throne. Bronn's brows rose. Gentle's not my specialty, but I'll manage. He signaled. Cersei looked at Jaime one last time. Pain, betrayal, relief swirling. Then Bronn guided her away. The fuse stump smoked faintly, curling tendrils of gray. Jaime ground it beneath boot, ensuring no spark lived. Dawn bled over Blackwater Bay, staining clouds vermilion. Jaime stood atop the mud gate battlements beside Sir Desmond and Shelko, wind riffling their cloaks. Below, portcullis chains rattled as Bronn's men hoisted iron teeth. The bridge lowered with clatter. Beyond, a sea of unsullied ranks glittered spear tips. Dothraki banners snapped. Siege towers rolled on groaning wheels, and overhead, a shadow eclipsed the sun. Drogon. Wings vast, eyes molten. Jaime raised a white banner lined in red, a square of linen once embroidered with Lannister pride, now stripped bare, sign of surrender. Missandei rode at the vanguard, gray cloak billowing. She halted, measured the open gate, then signaled. The army surged. Within the walls, small folk peered from windows. Some cheered, others wept. But no siege stones fell, no flames rained from scorpions. The city breathed. Daenerys herself rode atop a pale mare, silver hair streaming. She reigned before Jaime, dismounted. He knelt, offering Oathkeeper hilt first. She accepted, blade gleaming sunrise. Where's Cersei Lannister? Her voice carried. In custody, he replied. She yields the throne. A hush rippled across gathered ranks. Daenerys glanced toward the Red Keep. One could almost hear the old stones sigh. She turned back. Rise, Sir Jaime of House Lannister, she proclaimed, and know that this day a kingdom is spared because you chose mercy over madness. He rose. Sheathing Oathkeeper, she placed her palm upon his cheek. Over the bruise, Cersei's slap left. In her eyes, he saw not victory, but resolve tempered by compassion. The roar of dragons answered, the future's hymn. Hours later, in the throne room where iron blades twisted toward vaulting gloom, Jaime stood beside Daenerys as she addressed gathered lords. Gendry Baratheon of Storm's End, Samwell Tarly of Horn Hill, Jon Royce from the Vale, a dozen more. They bent knees, some eagerly, some with reluctance, but none denied the queen who had conquered without raising. Cersei was led in, flanked by Unsullied. She wore a simple gray gown, her head bowed. Jaime's chest tightened at the sight, yet he held firm. Daenerys' herald proclaimed charges: murder, treason, use of wildfire. But before sentence, Daenerys paused. This war is over, she declared. Let justice be foundation, not pyre. Cersei Lannister will face trial by council of lords and maesters. If guilty, she shall live out her days confined, her child raised free of her crimes. The realm will not begin anew with blood spilled on this. Murmurs swept. Jaime met his sister's eyes. Gratitude flickered, fleeting. When she was escorted away, Jaime exhaled. Tyrion touched his shoulder. I feared you couldn't choose. I feared the same, Jaime admitted. And now? Now I choose every day. Daenerys approached, smiled. A dawn breaking over long night. She slipped her hand into his, flesh to flesh. Together they stepped toward the Iron Throne, not to sit, but to stand before it. Partners surveying a hall ripe for rebuilding. Outside, bells tolled not for doom, but for dawn. The city answered with cautious hope. And in the courtyard, a smith quenched iron in water, steam rising like dragon breath, tempering steel, forging tomorrow. Night settled soft upon King's Landing. The Red Keep's windows glowed warm. Music drifted, faint lute strings weaving with laughter. Jaime wandered the upper garden where lemon trees reminded him of distant Dorne. He found Daenerys at the overlook, arms crossed against breeze smelling of base salt and flowering thyme. He joined her, brushing a fallen petal from her sleeve. They watched lanterns bob on the river, where fishermen celebrated peace with cups of river wine. "Tomorrow the work begins," she said. "Healing, rebuilding. It never truly ends," he replied. "No." She leaned into him. "Sure. But we will face it together." He wrapped his arm around her, golden hand catching moonlight. Below, the city pulsed, alive. Somewhere a child laughed, somewhere lovers whispered. Jaime closed his eyes, breathing the night. Once he was Kingslayer, then Oathbreaker, traitor, exile. Now, perhaps simply a man who had finally chosen the harder path. He opened his eyes to Daenerys' smile. Dragons slept on the ramparts, coiled like guardians. The future waited, unwritten, fragile, luminous, and beneath a tapestry of stars, amid lemon blossoms and sea breezes, fire and gold entwined, no longer weapons in opposition, but alloys forged anew. Niani, Bunchiopihai. Autumn seeped slowly into King's Landing, gold leaf by gold leaf, as though the trees themselves lowered their banners in acknowledgement of new rule. On the first morning of the Queen's peace, the sunrise painted dragons on the dawn gate, slanted fire through stained glass windows the smiths had hurried to repair, and scattered jewels across the black water where ships already ferried grain into half-empty granaries. Bells that once told panic now chimed for market hours. The city was learning how to breathe again, hesitant but eager. A child released from a long, dark room. Jaime Lannister felt that same faltering breath in his own chest when he rode through Flea Bottom, unescorted to oversee the day's rationing. The scars of siege were everywhere, cracked walls, blackened beams, an ache beneath the cobblestones where wildfire might have bloomed. Yet sellers of ginger cakes had returned, shouting prices above the clatter of river carts. A lad no taller than Jaime's sword tried to polish his boots for a farthing. Jaime slipped him a silver stag instead, and saw, for a heartbeat, wonder triumph over hunger. In the square near the old Sept's ruins, Unsullied stood watch while city masons raised a wooden dais. By dusk, it would bear the banners of the new Queen's Council, a crimson and gold lion half merged with the three-headed dragon, stitched overnight by seamstresses who wept at needle pricks they scarcely felt. Above it, the Charter of Amnesty would be read aloud, names of small folk absolved from debts to crown, liege, and guild, a gesture Daenerys insisted upon. A realm could not mend when its poorest remained shackled. Jaime dismounted by the dais and spoke with the Masonic Master, a wiry Stormlander missing 2 fingers. They marked timber joints, argued over brace angles, laughed when a goat ambled between them to nibble fresh straw. No one bowed. No one saluted. They treated Sir Jaime as another pair of hands, a novelty that pleased him far more than he would confess. Mid-morning brought a procession of orphans singing off key verses to Rhaegal's glory. Midday, a deputation of bakers petitioning grain price caps. Jaime heard them all. The weight of crown business never truly lessened. Tyrion had said, only shifted shoulders. Jaime's shoulders were broad enough, he reminded himself, for atonement and for tomorrow both. When the sun stood high, he returned to the Red Keep, sweat crusting the collar of his plain wool jerkin. He rode past the cracked skull of Balerion, the Black Dread, now installed in the courtyard as warning and as promise. Then up sweeping stairs where sunlight slanted through colonnades like mezzanine bars. At the solar, he halted, hearing voices within. Daenerys sat at a long table, cluttered with parchment stacks. Beside her perched Samwell Tarly, quill poised like a nervous sparrow. Across lounged Jon Royce, polishing a newly forged bronze cloak clasp. Tyrion paced, cup in hand, lecturing midway between jest and exasperation. If grain quotas don't incentivize rich merchants, we risk winter famine, he was saying. And I'm too pretty to starve. Daenerys waved him silent at Jaime's entrance. Her smile lit something deep behind Jaime's ribs. She wore no crown yet, only a simple gown of pale ash blue, corseted high sleeves, slashed for the lingering heat. A quill smudge darkened one cheek. Lord Hand argues that men will not feed the city without incentive, she told Jaime. What say you, Commander? Men feed their purses first, Jaime replied, wiping sweat from his brow with a kerchief embroidered by Missandei's deft fingers. Offer tariff relief to the grain barges, but require them to carry starving refugees southward on their return trips. Profit sweetened by conscience. Conscience is seldom sweet, Tyrion muttered, sipping. It can be a cheaper currency than steel. Jaime bent to examine a ledger Samwell presented. Numbers marched like an invading host. Harvest counts from the Reach, storehouse tallies, Archmaster estimates of northern snows. We need 6,000 more wagons before first frost. I've drafted requisition orders for smithies from River Run to Duskendale, Sam said, pushing sliding spectacles up his nose. But we lack iron rivets. Euron's blockade crippled the last shipment. Rip the spikes from redundant scorpion arms, Jaime suggested. Daenerys' brow rose. Reforge weapons into plowshares, into wagon nails at least. Let people see the transformation. Jon Royce grunted approval. Symbol carries weight. Tyrion lifted his cup in salute. Very well, Lord Commander. Consider my purse lighter. Niche. Business wound onward. Appointments of new gold cloak captains. Parchment sealed for trade envoys to Pentos. A dispute between Tully and Glover fisheries. Each decision, Jaime noted, nudged the realm an inch further from war. Inch by inch was enough. When counselors dispersed, Daenerys touched his sleeve. Walk with me. They climbed the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion's former haunt, now sun-drenched and breezy under open battlements. Below, the city's red roofs glimmered. Beyond, the dew-silvered sea stretched boundless. Rhaegel circled lazily overhead, a green crescent against blue. Daenerys rested elbows on the parapet. Every dawn I fear waking to smoke. Yet each day holds only the ordinary chaos of life. She smiled faintly. I scarcely know which is more daunting. Jaime leaned beside her. Peace demands different courage than war, but we've both stood before dragons. We've both been dragons, she corrected gently, eyes on the horizon, and must now learn gentler flights. A gull shrieked, folding wings to dive. Daenerys turned. Have you truly forgiven yourself? No. The admission came soft, but I am willing to live with the man I've chosen to become. That will have to suffice. She took his left hand, the living one, and traced scars from tourney rings long gone. It more than suffices. Her lips brushed his knuckles. The Septons have finished cleansing the Sept grounds. When the dais is raised, when banners fly together, would you stand beside me as husband and consort? His heart kicked against armor of bone. Gladly, he whispered. If the realm consents, the realm will learn. Sunlight flared in her eyes. And if it disapproves, we shall teach it better stories. Their foreheads met, quiet, steady as tide. In that hush, he felt the shape of futures. children with lions' smiles and dragons' will. Courtiers complaining of drought while dragons seeded clouds with lightning. A throne room rebuilt not of blades but of polished river stone, where ambassadors spoke through translators instead of envoys of war. All of it impossibly fragile, yes, but so is every newborn thing. Afternoon shadows stretched over the dungeon courtyard where Cersei, once queen of the Seven Kingdoms, now paced a cell whose bars shimmered with the same reddish rust that had eaten at JAIME's memories for years. She wore gray linen, her hair shorn to the shoulders. Of her own choosing, or as a jailer's insult, JAIME did not know. Guards nodded when he requested entrance. They had grown accustomed to the lone lion's visits, though they could not fathom them. Cersei turned, expression half sour, half wistful. "You missed luncheon," she said. "Pickled quail eggs and yesterday's bread. A feast fit for traitors. Nein, I've brought lemon cake." He held a small basket baked by the royal kitchens. "Too sweet for my teeth." She accepted one, sniffed suspicion, nibbled. "Too dry," she judged, but ate another bite. They sat opposite each other on stone benches. No chains bound her, only 4 unsullied waited outside. She could not leave the keep, yet within she wandered gardens under chaperone, read from Tommen's old library, argued with her jailers until they fled. Daenerys had kept her word. Justice did not mean cruelty. "How fares our city?" she asked, learning new hymns. "They ring less shrill than our old ones. Nin, Jalev, I hear dragon wings at dawn." A ghost of fear flashed. "I wonder which prayer saves us if scales fall. Rhaegal hunts open water. Drogon never roams without command. You are safe." Her laugh cracked dry. "Safe behind bars, with Jaime Lannister to guard my night." "Not to guard." He folded hands. "To understand. That is a fool's errand." He looked down. "Perhaps." Silence stretched. She dusted crumbs from her fingers, glanced sideways. "Our child moves," she said abruptly, palm to belly. "He kicks when bells ring." A knot tightened in his throat. "May I?" She hesitated, then guided his hand. Through linen, he felt a flutter. A small, decisive drumming. Tears blurred his vision. "Usher," he murmured. "Stubborn," she corrected. He drew breath. "No, cha. When the council convenes for your trial, speak truth, Cersei. Admit your crimes. Show contrition. It may earn leniency for you and the babe." Her jaw clenched. "A lion bows to no sheep. This is not bowing, it's saving him." She withdrew her hand. "He deserves a throne. He deserves a world." Her gaze cooled. "A world ruled by your dragon whore." Jaime closed eyes briefly. "I will return tomorrow. Bring wine," she called as he rose. "If the new queen's law allows her prisoners a comfort." Bitterness dripped. Outside, Unsullied saluted silently. Jaime walked corridors echoing with artisans' hammers, repairing ceiling vaults, chiseling away rubble. Behind him, Cersei's cell door thudded. Each visit carved a piece of him, yet he could not cease. Guilt and love knotted too deeply. At dusk he climbed to his chambers, once the King's Guard's white tower, now stripped of lion banners, walls freshly plastered. He donned a plain tunic, washed grime, studied his reflection in a polished shield, hair flecked with silver, scar across jaw from black water, eyes older than their years. He breathed, preparing to dine with his betrothed queen. In the great hall, musicians tuned lutes. Tables held platters of roasted sea bass, olives, pomegranates split like starbursts. Ambassadors from Bravos discussed loan rates with Iron Bank couriers. Nobles of the Reach in new green doublets toasted union with Dothraki horselords who laughed at utensil etiquette. Jaime sat by Daenerys' side, carving slices for her plate before his own. She teased him that valor gained little weight without food. He bowed to duty, devoured her portion when she feigned daintiness. Later, under lantern glow, Tyrion found him on a gallery balcony gazing at constellations. The dwarf offered a wineskin. "You'll need courage for tomorrow's spectacle." "The charter?" Jaime asked. "The charter, the betrothal proclamation, the inevitable riot of lords offended their daughters, were bypassed for a dragon queen." Tyrion smirked. "I've wagered a purse on which will kill us first. Indignant nobility or stale royal protocol." Jaime drank. The wine tasted of plums and quiet regrets. "You once told me I would die with wine in my hand and a woman on my head." "Don't remind me," Tyrion groaned. "Prophecies age poorly." They stood shoulder to shoulder, memory bridging silences. Ships' lanterns flickered upon the river like drifting souls. Somewhere a dragon growled contentment. "Do you ever miss father?" Jaime asked. Tyrion's sigh missed it. "I miss the certainty of hating him. Simpler days." Jaime nodded. "I fear I will soon miss hating myself." "Don't worry, brother. Plenty will volunteer." They laughed softly until words failed. Then Tyrion clasped Jaime's metal wrist. "You've done well," he said. "Truly." Jaime could only hope. Morning of the charter. Sunlight spilled across thousands assembled before the shattered sept, now cleared into a vast plaza lined by freshly erected flagpoles. Color fluttered. Targaryen red-black beside Lannister crimson-gold. Tyrell rose intertwined with stark direwolf on pale gray. Newcomer banners of a silver kraken broken by a sword, symbolic of Iron Islands pledged to peace. The hush of expectancy thrummed louder than drums. Daenerys emerged first, in gown of white silk embroidered with 3 lion heads breathing flame. A simple silver circlet offset amethyst eyes. Rhaegal winged overhead, letting loose a purring roar that shook dust from broken columns. The crowd gasped, some kneeling instinctively. Jaime followed in black doublet trimmed crimson, a single dragon head clasp at throat. Oathkeeper hung at his left hip, balanced by a ceremonial dagger at right. He felt thousands of eyes. Hope, curiosity, doubt. His pulse thudded, but his stride did not falter. Tyrion mounted the dais, voice carrying by means of a cunning Braavosi echo horn. Men and women of the realm, small folk and nobility alike, hear now the charter of the Queen's peace. He read clauses: abolition of forced tithes in drought years, rebuilding grants for sept and septless alike, ban on use of wildfire without council approval, protection edicts for refugees of war, formal recognition of new trades guilds in Dorne and the North. Each article met cheer or murmured debate, but none met hostility. At the charter's close, Tyrion raised a final scroll. "By will of her grace Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of her name, and with consent of the council, Sir Jaime of House Lannister is named Warden of the South, protector of the Black Water, and betrothed consort to the Queen." A murmur surged, cresting on waves of surprise, then settling into applause. Scattered at first, then spreading. Jaime saw nobles exchange wary glances, measuring advantage. Small folk cheered louder. A lion who spared their allies offered promise enough. He exhaled. Daenerys took his hand, lifted it high. Sunlight glinted off gold prosthesis and her silver ring bracelet, forging a brief corona. Rhaegal roared approval. Wind whipped banners into thunder. Jaime felt the realm pivot, minutely but irrevocably, like a great gear engaging a new tune. Autumn deepened. Harvest wagons rumbled north under lion dragon escort. Storms and granaries overflowed with reach wheat. Northern furs arrived for trade against Dornish citrus. Not all voices sang praises. Ironborn muttered at Kraken banners broken by swords. Tyrell cousins argued land grants. Sparrows smoldered at a queen once wed to a foreign caliph. Yet, bloodshed remained memory, not currency. The realm might quarrel, but chose not to kill. Inside the Red Keep, wedding preparations advanced. Seamstresses layered bolts of Myrish lace. Dornish vintners negotiated rights to pour the first toast. Unsullied polished armor bright enough to mirror torches. Brienne of Tarth arrived from the Trident with Podrick Payne in tow, offering her sword to the Queen's Guard. Daenerys accepted gladly. Seeing Brienne again, Jaime felt a pocket of affection he had long mislaid. When Daenerys later asked about the tall knight's bright flush, Jaime narrated the bear and the maiden fair in comedic detail until the Queen's laughter filled the solo. Yet under all bustle pulsed one unresolved thread. Cersei's trial. By Queen's decree, a panel of lords and maesters assembled, chaired by Lady Sansa of Winterfell, arrived from the north with guards bearing wolf banners crisp in cold air. Beside her sat Gendry Baratheon, Lord Davos as steward, Archmaester Ibrose representing Old Town. Tyrion recused himself. Jaime was barred from voting, but allowed testimony. Throughout the city, speculation frothed like kettle beer. The trial unfolded in the throne room, stripped of iron blades, benches replacing menace. Witnesses spoke. Black. Smiths robbed for forged scorpions. Stable boys pressed into wildfire tunnels. Nobles threatened by Qyburn's faceless brutes. Jaime himself stood, voice steady despite quiver beneath. He recounted Cersei's command to burn the city. When asked motive, he spoke only. She loved her children beyond reason. No more, no less. Cersei listened, back straight, eyes ember bright. When her turn came, she refused counsel, elected to speak alone. She admitted no contrition, but neither did she plead innocence. She evoked Robert's beatings, the High Sparrow's humiliation, the weight of lions expected to rule a realm that never forgave a woman her strength. She spoke of grief for Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, names that turned even hardened guards soft. Tears brimmed at Tommen's memory. She let them fall. When verdict time arrived, benches murmured. Lady Sansa stood, face pale but resolute. Cersei Lannister, you are guilty of crimes against the realm, she declared. Yet the realm you sought to burn chooses instead to temper justice with mercy. You shall be confined to the Silent Sisters on Dragonstone, to live out your days in contemplation. Your child will be raised at court under care of Maester Samwell and Queen Daenerys, free to choose his own path. Shock rippled. Some cried lenient, some cruel. Cersei bowed head, lips taut. Jaime released a breath he did not know he held. Later, as guards escorted Cersei to ship, Jaime waited at the pier. Evening sun, split clouds, gilding water. She approached, halting a pace away. I dreamed of a throne of swords, she said, but I never dreamed of silence. He struggled for words. She reached, brushed his cheek. Take care of him, she whispered, hand over belly. Teach him to be more than we were. I will, he vowed. She boarded, sails billowed. The galley slipped into tides, silhouette dwindling until swallowed by horizon. Jaime watched long after dusk, bled purple across waves. Winter's breath drifted south sooner than expected. Sleet rattling shutters, frost feathering ramparts. Yet hearths burned bright in the Red Keep. Larders brimmed. Jaime oversaw patrol rotations, escort schedules for grain shipments, training of new recruits blending Dothraki dash with unsullied discipline. Brienne drilled squires each dawn. Rhaegal nested on the dragon pit's rebuilt dome, exhaling steam plumes. One bitter night, ravens arrived from the wall, tales of winds turning unnatural. of shapes in snow beyond Eastwatch. Samwell pored over parchments, brow furrowing. When Jaime relayed the message to Daenerys, fire glinted in her eyes. "The dead?" she asked. "Possibly," he said. "Rangers speak of pale shadows. My father's throne means nothing if life itself falters." She paced firelit study. "We may need to ride north sooner than wedding vows allow." Jaime's pulse quickened. "I swore to guard the south," he said, then smiled. "But a king's guard must follow his queen." Plans shifted. Unsullied cohorts readied for cold. Dothraki herds learned to shoe horses for ice. Lady Sansa sent ravens, pledging Winterfell's hearths for alliance. Gendry hammered dragonglass spearheads in cellars once hoarded for wildfire. Smiths cursing cold forged iron and obsidian blades. On the eve of departure, Jaime and Daenerys wed in the rebuilt sept, walls still raw stone smelling of lime. Only council members and small folk representatives attended. Pomp stripped of vows beneath a canopy of woven lion and dragon. Tyrion officiated with irreverent solemnity, quoting Archmaester treatises on union and jesting about bedded alliances. When Jaime kissed Daenerys, bells pealed, pure, bright, unmarred by wildfire smoke. Their wedding feast was a soldier's ration at field tables: crusty bread, thick stew, spiced wine ladled into tin cups. They laughed with unsullied sergeants, shared stories with northern hunters. Brienne played shield drum while Podrick sang a ballad off-key. Rhaegal soared overhead, flames spiraling skyward like vow lanterns. That night, within a modest chamber hung with simple tapestries, Jaime traced tender scars on Daenerys' shoulder, the marks of Drogon's saddle straps, and she traced the seam where steel had once severed his hand. They undressed slowly, reverently, as though shedding the last remains of war. When they lay together, joined in new warmth, their breath clouded in lantern glow, mingling like two embers fusing to blaze. Outside, winds muttered through ramparts, tugging at banners. Somewhere in distant snowfields, another wind answered, colder. But between those tempests, there was this night, lion and dragon entwined, forging hope under winter's first pale star. Columns of flame-lit torches wound north along the King's Road. Unsullied shields, gleaming with frost, Dothraki braids clinking with dragonglass beads, reach wagons creaking under grain, smiths hammering at way-camp forges. At their head rode Jaime and Daenerys, he in mail of black steel filigreed with crimson, she in white fur cloak clasped by a silver dragon, Drogon and Rhaegal circling overhead like twin storms tethered to her will. Villages along the routes spilled folk to watch. Some knelt, others waved linen strips. Children scampered after horse tracks. The army left coin for stores, grain for bleak hamlets, healers for fever-ridden cottages. Every gesture wove another thread in the fragile fabric of trust. At Maidenpool, Lord Mooton offered castle beds. Daenerys chose tents in courtyard alongside soldiers. She spent dusk hearing petitions, a potter seeking clay rights, sisters seeking redress for a murdered brother. Jaime watched her weigh each plea, saw in her grace the steel of dragons honed for rule. At night's fires they spoke of strategy, supply chains, raven relays, winter gear. Tyrion, riding a sturdy destrier named Bookworm, argued for alliances with every northern clan. Brienne sketched defensive formations on high. Yet after council dispersed, Jaime would sit with Daenerys beneath quilt of stars, share dried pears soaked in wine, and dream aloud of orchards in Dragonstone's valleys, of a school where orphan girls learned letters and spear alike, of a world where no man or woman needed to break an oath to keep a promise. Snowflakes greeted them near the neck, tiny scouts of a greater host. Marshes froze, reeds crackled. Northern outriders met them, men in gray cloaks embroidered with white branches, house reed. Mira herself led them, grin wide despite cold. She guided the column through causeways, whispering of haunted mists and lights beneath the bog. At Moat Cailin, Sansa awaited with black-cloaked guards. She greeted Daenerys with courteous warmth, Jaime with guarded smile. History remembered, but hope tempered. They feasted on venison, parsnip mash, sour beer. Jaime spoke with Lady Arya, returned from Bravos lean and sharp as the blade at her hip. She eyed him like a hawk, but her shake of his hand carried grudging respect. It was at the hearth after feast that Sansa asked the question burning every northern tongue. "Does your coming mean you bring fire for our snows?" she asked Daenerys. "Or fire that scorches?" Daenerys met her gaze steadily. "I bring fire to stand between the living and the night, no farther." Sansa nodded, satisfied for now. The Lord of Winterfell's word carried weight. The north watched keenly. The march pressed on. Snow deepened, tents frosted each dawn. Rhaegal relished mountain updrafts. Drogon snarled at blizzards. Jaime's lion cloak iced stiff, yet warmth thrummed at his side where Daenerys rode, cheeks flushed pink from cold rather than heat. One dawn near Deepwood Motte, ravens arrived, ink frozen in inkwells, message hastily scrawled. The dead had breached Eastwatch, walls sundered by strange sorcery. Torment Giantspan led ragged survivors south along the coast. Panic rippled through camp. Jaime felt old dread, that primal thrum last heard beneath wildfire casks, but Daenerys' voice cut through wind like unsheathed steel. "We ride," she ordered. "Minimal baggage. Dragons will scout. Jaime, Brienne, prepare vanguard. Tyrion, coordinate supply fallback to Winterfell." Trumpets blew. Banners snapped, rigid. Horses steamed, unsullied, formed columns quick as breath. Within an hour, the great host thundered north, snow clouds boiling overhead. They reached Winterfell as sunset embered the sky. Castle walls bristled with archers, gate banners frozen stiff. Stark direwolf flew intertwined with dragon lion. Inside courtyards rang with preparation. Blacksmiths forging dragon glass blades, maesters brewing fire oil, wildlings sharpening axes. Jon Snow emerged from gate, cloak of black and gray swirling. He clasped Daenerys' forearm, nodded to Jaime. "Night King drives undead south," he reported. "Scouts report 10 miles march per day. We have at most a week before first clash." Jaime's fingers tightened around Oathkeeper's hilt. Battle again, but not for thrones, not for pride. This for life itself. His stomach knotted with familiar mix of fear and exhilaration. He glanced at Daenerys. Her expression held fierce calm, yet her hand stroked Drogon's scaled neck, seeking silent counsel. That night snow fell thick, blanketing ramparts, muffling boots. Fires flickered orange against white. In the great hall, commanders gathered. Jon, Daenerys, Jaime, Sansa, Tormund, Davos, Arya, Grey Worm, Brienne, Theon Greyjoy, Mira Reed, Gendry, Samwell. Maps unfurled, dragon glass tokens placed, strategies argued. Jaime proposed staggered spear walls fronted by unsullied phalanx, Dothraki flanking under cover of blizzard. Brienne insisted on triage posts every 50 paces. Arya suggested wildfire traps in bottleneck lanes. Gendry volunteered to craft dispersal charges. Every voice held weight. No lord claimed supremacy over survival itself. As debate lulled, Jaime remembered another war room, another king's madness. He looked to Daenerys, no trace of Aerys' wild glee, only determined light. He felt pride pulse warm through chilled bones. Before dawn he visited the godswood, ice-rimmed leaves crimson under pale moon. Beneath the heart tree Bran Stark waited in wheeled chair, eyes glassy as lake frost. Children of the forest carved faces watched silently. Jaime knelt beside Bran, breath clouding. "I wronged you once," he said. "If there is debt to pay, claim it now." Bran's lips curved faintly. "The past brought us here. Without your fall, none of this future stands. Go with peace, Sir Jaime." A single weirwood leaf drifted onto Jaime's golden hand, scarlet against bright metal. He thanked the boy, man, seer, and left with heart lighter than snowflake. Battle eve. Wind howled round curtained walls. Soldiers slept in armor. Horses stamped. In Daenerys' chamber, a brazier fought cold. Jaime entered to find her fastening scale mail over quilted tunic, hair braided tight. She turned. A wedding bed of spears. She joked, voice soft. He helped buckle pauldrons, tracing dragon motifs. I once believed battle the only bed I deserved. And now I wish for bed feathers and children's laughter. He smoothed stray lock behind her ear. So we must win the dawn. She kissed him, not desperate but steady, melding warmth into frost. Together, they descended to courtyard where Rhaegal and Drogon awaited, eyes glowing ember. Snow hissed off their scales. Jaime mounted on her beside Daenerys' saddle. She climbed Drogon, cloak billowing like white flame. Trumpets sounded. Gates groaned open onto a world of endless white. Columns advanced into night, as much night as snowlight allowed. Torches guttering blue. Wolves howled from distant ridges. Above, dragons beat wings, scattering flurries and molten spirals. Jaime's breath hitched at the sight, myth alive, his queen astride living storm. On a rise they formed lines, unsullied shields locked, dragonglass spears angled. Dothraki screamers fidgeting, braids snapping, northern archers stringing arrows tipped obsidian. Silence spread, broken only by whimper of wind. Then a sound like ice, shattering 1,000 panes. White shapes emerged from darkness, first a line, then a tide. Whites armored in frost, eye pits glowing glacier blue. At their rear a figure atop undead horse, crown of horns, skin pale as moonlit bone. The Night King. A chill deeper than cold coiled in Jaime's gut. Yet he raised Oathkeeper high. Torchlight kissed Valyrian edge. He bellowed words he never imagined owning. For life, fight! Clamor erupted. Horns, drums, battle cries mingling. The dead surged. Living met them. Spears pierced ice meat. Shields shuddered under ancient claws. Blue eyes shattered to dust. Arrows rained. Dothraki swept flanks. Arax gleaming black. Jaime fought with an unsullied heart, golden hand gripping shield rim. He parried a white's jagged sword, cleaved skull. Another lunged. He pivoted, hamstringing. Bloodless bodies kept rising. Sweat froze in beard. Above, Drogon dived, fire torrent burning dead in incandescent waves, snow turning to steam. Rhaegal banked, exhaling emerald furnace. The army of winter shrieked, ranks scorched. The Night King raised arms. Dead Dothraki fell, rose again, blue eyes blazing. Panic rippled. Jaime remembered Blackwater, green fire, screaming. He steadied. Hold! He roared. They held, unsullied lock shields anew. Brienne's voice a clarion as she hewed through ice. Arya darted like shadow among snowdrifts, blade of Valyrian glint delivering silent ends. Tormund laughed savage joy, crushing skulls with axe. Night King strode forward, cold radiating. He flung ice spear at Rhaegal, struck wing. The dragon screeched, spiraled. Daenerys urged Drogon to intercept, flames bathing undead giants. Jaime watched horror as Rhaegal faltered behind tree line. Crash, thunderous. Drogon roared rage. Daenerys wheeled toward Night King, flames streaming. The White Walker raised frosted palm. Flames parted like curtains around him. He drew another spear, aim. Jaime saw destiny converging. He spurred honor through throng. Hurtling fallen. Desmond's voice called, but wind swallowed. He galloped up ridge, dead grasping at stirrups. He cast shield aside, drew dragon-glass dagger from belt. Night King's spear sailed toward Drogon. Jaime rose in stirrups, hurled dagger. Black Shard whistled, struck spear mid-flight, shattering both into glittering shards. Night King's gaze snapped to Jaime. Cold malevolence. He raised hand. Ice tendrils shot from ground, entangling horse. Honor crashed, sending Jaime tumbling. Snow bit flesh that swarmed but scattered as Drogon's shadow fell. Dragon claws raked ground, fangs shredding whites. Daenerys leapt down, running to Jaime. Night King advanced, conjuring blade of crystal frost. Jaime staggered upright, Oathkeeper ready, though breath ragged. Daenerys stepped beside, unsheathing jonquil hilt dagger of Valyrian gifted by Jon Snow. "We end this together," she said. The Night King moved with unnatural grace, swing swift at Daenerys. She parried, sparks blue and red. Jaime slashed, but frost blade met Valyrian, sending shock numb through arms. He pivoted, golden hand catching enemy wrist. Metal seared freezing pain. Night King's visage twitched. Jaime twisted, breaking grip, and Daenerys lunged, plunging Valyrian steel into ancient heart. Crack echoed, like glacier splitting beneath sunrise. The Night King's eyes widened, blue pigments fracturing into white light. He shattered, shards whirling into snow. Across battlefield, whites collapsed lifeless. Ice dissipating like sigh of winter, relinquished. Silence, real, profound. Dragons beat wings overhead in exultant thunder. Living soldiers stared, breaths white plumes. Then cheers erupted, howls of survivors, greeting dawn's faint blush on horizon. Daenerys brushed snow from Jaime's shoulders, eyes shining wet. He winced at frostburn on golden hand. She kissed reddened metal. Around them, first rays of sunlight spilled over ridge, gilding melted snowmelt rivulets, touching steel and frozen tears alike. They walked among comrades, embracing Brienne, streaked with gore, clasping Jon's forearm, weeping with Sansa, who clutched Arya to breast. Rhaegal limped from treeline, wing torn but alive. Drogon trumpeted greeting. The world felt newborn, its breath steam rising. Spring arrived earlier than any maester would have wagered, as though the earth itself hurried to erase winter's siege. Snow receded north of the neck. Crocus spears punctured dawning fields. In Winterfell's godswood, green buds unfurled on weirwood boughs, their red leaves whispering tales of survival. The Victory Council convened under open sky. Decisions. Reparations to free folk for lost kin. Wildling rangers integrated into Night's Watch. Dragonglass mines converted to shared venture for weapons merchants under strict charter. Enter Sibyn. Jaime proposed memorial cairns along King's Road for the fallen. Stone markers carved with both names, and blank faces for unknown. The council approved. Daenerys addressed assembled hosts, her words carried on mild breeze. "We fought not for crowns, but for dawn. Let the realm henceforward honor life above lineage." Cheers answered. Wedding vows renewed at Winterfell's heart tree, overseen by Bran in quiet blessing. Northern lords knelt not from compulsion but from gratitude. A feast followed where ale barrels emptied faster than huntsmen could replenish hares. Jon Snow danced with Arya, and Sansa laughed, a sound Jaime had never heard from her in King's Landing halls. Later, in quiet of Bran's library, Jaime found Daenerys studying old maps of Valyria and Summer Isles. "Adventures," he teased. "Mercy missions," she corrected. "Dragons can speed healing voyages, carry maesters to plague shores, seed rain on drought lands." He smiled. "And here I thought we might steal weeks' respite in Dornish vineyards. We will." She rolled map, kissed his cheek. "But duty first." He drew her close. "Then let us make duty our adventure." Years passed, swift, unrelenting. Cersei's son, named Leo, grew under Samwell's tutelage. A thoughtful boy with his mother's sharp wit and his father's quiet courage. He practiced sword with Brienne, language with Missandei, diplomacy with Tyrion, who indulged him with riddles. Cersei, cloistered among silent sisters, received letters in careful script. JAIME visited when duties allowed. Mother and son spoke through a lattice, hands touching shadow to shadow. Cersei's hair grayed early, but her eyes softened where once they blazed. Under JAIME's wardenship, the South bloomed. Orphanages funded by Dragonlion treasury, roads patrolled by mixed companies of unsullied and reach levies, harvest shares stored against lean years. In the Riverlands, he oversaw rebuilding of stone bridges. In Dorne, he negotiated water rights treaties. In the Westerlands, he arranged mines to pay workers fair coin. Each act chipped at old sins. Daenerys ruled from Dragonstone summers and King's Landing winters. Her council, Tyrion, Sansa, Jon, who refused crown but served as Warden of the North, Grey Worm, Sam, debated vigorously, often heated, but never unto blades. Dragons soared over festivals rather than battlefields. Dornish children sang songs of Firewife Lionheart, a ballad where love tames war. On their 5th anniversary, Daenerys gave Jaime a daughter, Rhaella Lannister Targaryen, hair gold shot with silver eyes pale lavender. Jaime wept unabashedly, holding the tiny bundle as bells pealed across Blackwater. Tyrion toasted, joking dynasty odds at the betting tables in Bravos. When Leo visited the nursery, he studied infant Rhaella, then vowed solemnly to teach her to shoot crossbow better than any boy. Jaime felt tears again, not of guilt but hope. Years later still, on a spring morning scented with orange blossoms, Jaime stood upon the parapet, where once he and Daenerys dared future's edge. Age silvered his hair, lines fanned eyes, but shoulders remained straight. Below, children chased wooden dragon toys along terrace. Leia's laughter rang. Rhaella shrieked glee riding a wolfhound. Daenerys joined him, smiles soft. The realm ends, she said, because its queen wields mercy as fiercest sword, and its king wields humility. Rarer still. She rested head on his shoulder. Jaime gazed across city, spires gleaming refurbished copper, harbor bustling with trade galleys, dragon pit domes housing hatchlings tended by stable girls. No wildfire slept beneath streets, only warm ovens and forge hearth. He recalled nights of ash, of betrayal, of twin hearts breaking. Those echoes lingered but no longer ruled. Scars became lines and maps. They navigated together, charting toward horizons yet unnamed. In distance, Rhaegal's offspring, emerald-winged and exuberant, wheeled over whispering sound. Jaime's daughter pointed skyward, delight bright as sunrise. He felt surge of love so fierce it nearly unseated him. "We have given them dawn," he whispered. Daenerys squeezed his hand, flesh and gold interlaced. "And they will give it to others." Thus the lion who once slew kings, and the dragon who once burned chains, forged a realm where fire tempered steel, not souls, and where love, not fear, held the gates long closed.